Hi, welcome back to Bexhill West. I'm James. Now, today's video is going to be about 3D printing chairs or chair rafts from Templot. Now, I thought I'd made this video several weeks ago. In fact, through the computer I found all the bits of footage, some of which was partially edited, and realised I'd never finished it off or uploaded it. So today's video we're going to finish that off and have a look at sort of batch producing chairs for producing plug track with Templot. Now, a word or two about 3D printing. I've got several 3D printers ranging in quality from the very cheap but not nasty Alcade printer, which I reviewed some months ago. I think it was about £90, up to some more sophisticated ones. All machines seem to work brilliantly well. I've been using this particular resin. I'll put it up on the screen here now, and I've been finding that works brilliantly for plug track chairs. Now, the resin itself is quite thick and it tends to clog up and remain in the little holes in the chairs if you're producing chairs with loose outer jaws. Martin Wynne recommends this water washable resin, which is much thinner and so it drains away and is much easier to clean. I don't use the water washable stuff myself. I like the stuff that I have been using. It's really tough, really strong, not at all brittle, but it being thick, it tends to sort of stick to the prints when they're finished, and they do require thorough cleaning. So really the secret with what I'm saying is make sure you clean your prints thoroughly when they're complete. But as for the printing technology, every printer, from the cheapest to the most expensive of the consumer grade printers that I've used, work beautifully well. There's no real difference in it. In fact, the Alcade one 3 or 4 years ago, that would have been considered state of the art. So don't dismiss a cheap printer as being no good. In fact, the thing that I've really learned from using a variety of different 3D printers is that the printing technology is far beyond the capabilities of the sort of consumer grade resins. It seems that the really expensive machines are capable of a resolution that the consumer grade resins aren't capable of achieving anyway. As I see it, if you've got to kind of take a picture of a thing and zoom in to see the detail, then it's probably more resolution than you actually need anyway. Anyway, that's enough whittering on. I'll get straight into it and we'll have a look at producing some chair rafts. Thanks for watching. Okay, let's get straight into this, and we're going to begin by producing some S1 chairs. Now, they're the everyday common chair that's going to be used on all the plane tracks. So we're going to use loads and loads of S1 chairs, so let's get making them. Okay, straight into Templot. The first thing we want to do is set the gauge to whatever we want to use. Doesn't matter, you choose what you want to use. I'm going to choose 18.83 S4/P4. Okay, so that's re-gauged what we've got on the screen here, and we've got that usual piece of curved track with the turnout that Templot always starts with. So the first thing I'm going to do is hit the plane track button, and I'm going to go geometry and change it to a straight length of track. Now, if I get the length tool, I can drag this down and we can make it just a single sleeper. Let's zoom in on that. Okay, so we've got a single sleeper. If we go real chairing 3D, we're going to turn on the experimental chairing, and that has put 2 S1 chairs on our sleeper. It's also opened up this experimental 3D box. Now, if for whatever reason you accidentally close that down, it's very easy to bring it back. We can just hit this 3D button in the top left hand corner and it reappears. Okay, so if we want to produce a chair raft off of a single sleeper, what we do is hit this button here on the experimental 3D menu, store and shift multi, and let's see what happens. There we go. You'll see it's shrunk the gauge to a minimum, and it's drawn a line of, many pairs of these. So that's going to be the basis of our raft. Now, we've got these numbers all around here. These relate to the individual templates that have made this thing up. If we hit the end button on our trackpad, that's gonna, or rather our numerical keyboard, but hit the end button, that's gonna get rid of all of those labels. We don't need them. Okay, so I'm going to come up here to the top left and select the group tool, and I'm going to drag a box around those. They're now grouped. So that's our chairs. What we need to do is create the raft, and we do that with the shapes menu. So let's open that up, move this to one side. So we're going to create a new shape. Let's call it raft. It's going to be a rectangle, and we've got three options for how we create it. We can draw a rectangle. I always like to do at the click locations. So if we hit the click locations, we can click once and twice, and it put those two little black crosses in place. Hit add shape, and it's drawn a box around our chairs. That's great. So let's close that down. Come back to this experimental 3D set of tools here. Hit DXF/XTL file export. We want chairs only, and we're going to hit export DXF. Now this is going to create an STL file, so let's call it S1 video chairs. We'd obviously call it whatever we like. Hit save, and it's going to bring up this information. We're going to hit the green button to open the STL in 3D Builder for mesh fixing. Click continue, and there we go. There's our raft of S1 chairs. Now by default it produces the loose outer jaw option. So we've got a raft here, but we haven't got any outer jaws. So what I'm going to do is click import model. That's going to highlight it with this little red box, tell us that it needs some mesh fixing, and we hit the spanner, and that's now going to start repairing those. So whilst that's repairing, I'm going to take a minute or so. I'm going to come back into Templot, and now without doing anything else, I can hit the show settings button. If I go to chairs plug/sockets, control template chair settings, I can now export only loose outer jaws and keys. So I'm going to select that option, modify the group to match, so that's going to change all of the chairs in our little group. Click apply changes, and I'm going to export those as before. So let's call it S1 loose outer jaws. Click save. Let's open this in 3D Builder exactly the same as we did before. So there we've got a raft of just the loose outer jaws. So I'm going to import the model and click the spanner to repair it. So whilst that's repairing, I'm going to come back into my previous one, and that's still repairing, so we need to leave that a little while. Oh, there we go, it's just finished. So I'm now going to go save as. I'm going to change it to STL format. Now we want that to save into STL files fixed. It normally defaults there. I don't know why it didn't on this occasion, but we want it into that folder, STL files fixed, save. And I'm going to come in here, and now there's my loose outer jaws. The red box has gone, which means they have been mesh fixed. So we can go save as, just as we did before. Change it to STL, save. And there we go, that's our chairs all, so our S1 chairs and the loose outer jaws all made. Okay, so we're back into Templot. Let's make some S1J chairs now, the joint chairs. So what I'm going to do is Select each of these bits that we made previously, and I'm just using the mouse to select them, and I'm pressing the D button to delete each of those. I could have deleted them as a group. I'll show you how to do that in just a minute. Now if we come back to this timber, our single timber, if we go reel, shove timbers, now just underneath where it says jaws only, if I hover over there we'll see the label A1. Let's select that, and that's selected our timber. Now if we have a look at the width, it's 3.33 millimeters. If we click full size inches, we can see that that's a 10-inch sleeper. If I click on there, we could change it from a 10-inch sleeper to a 12-inch sleeper or a timber. Click OK, and hopefully you saw it became wider, and the S1J chairs have now become, sorry, the S1 chairs have now automatically been resized to S1J chairs, which is great. So we can do exactly the same thing as we did before. Store and shift multi. I'm going to drag the group box around all of those, and now if I go group shift by mouse action, I can now take all of those and I can recycle my raft that I'd produced previously. Now this is interesting, jaws only, so this is just going to produce the jaws. So I'll just do this very quickly. If I go output, export, create DXF, let's hide those. So in fact, let's just click export there, and we'll call them S1J jaws. Open those in 3D Builder, and we've got a set of jaws for our S1J chair. I'm going to click import and spanner, come back to Templot. If I change the control template chair settings here and export the chairs with loose outer jaws, modify group to match, apply changes, this is exactly what I did before. Click export, and let's call them S1J chairs. Save, open that. There's our raft of S1J chairs. And I've actually got two files in 3D Builder now. We've got the jaws and we've got the chairs. So with those chairs done, I can click import model. It highlights it, tells me they need mesh fixing. Click the spanner and we'll let that do its thing. And when it's repaired, we can go file, save as, set it as an STL file, just as we did before. But before I do any of that, I'm going to come back into Templot. So as a reminder, we've got our same set of chairs, our S1J chairs on the raft. Let's export those. And this time we're going to go control template chair settings, just as we did before. And we're going to export all the chairs with solid outer jaws and keys. So I can modify the group to match, apply the changes and export them. So let's call these S1J chairs solid jaws. Let's open that in 3D Builder. If I now rotate these round, you could see we've got chairs with inner and outer jaws. So we could, that's an alternative way of doing it. If we want to thread the whole jaw onto the rail and then plug the rail in, that's how we would do it. And of course we can hit import model, click the spanner, and that will mesh fix. That will prepare those for 3D printing. So in that little demo, we've now got 3 files in 3D Builder. We've got our jaws, we've got our loose outer jaws, our chairs with no outer jaws to take the loose outer jaws, and we've created a solid chair. And we could have done that with the S1 chairs we looked at previously as well. So we're back into Templot. Let's see if we can do some turnout chairs now. So we've got this group here. If I come up to the group menu, we can delete group templates, and that's the quickest way of deleting them all. When I did the S1 chairs, I deleted them individually. Now we can do those in one go. Okay, so I'm just going to shift that up there a little bit. Let's, with the length tool, make our template a little bit longer, and we can hit the turnout button and we can turn that into a turnout. All sorts of things we can do here. Really, these are Templot specific rather than plug track. But we could change the crossing option, the crossing angle. We could change it to, let's say, a 1 in 8. Various things we could do. Okay, with the template here, we could do several things using this experimental 3D box. One of which is to shrink the switch heel. So by hitting that particular button, we could then select those. Let's shift the group into that chair raft that we had previously created. Sorry, I don't know what I did there. I've messed that up. Oh, it moved the shape as well. So let's put those roughly there. And if we come to our shape tool, we can modify that rectangle. We can adjust the corners of the shape, so we could size that a little more appropriately. And very quickly, output, create a DXF. Let's call it heel chairs. So that's now produced a raft of just the heel chairs for that particular turnout. So in that last segment we looked at exporting the switch heel chairs, which are those in this area, using the shrink switch heel button down here. Now there's also the option to select this one here, which fills the spare space on that raft with extra L1 chairs, which isn't a bad thing. So having a look at our turnout here, the next ones we're going to have a look at are the slide chairs. And the way we're going to get those is quite simple. We're going to begin with the blanking button just here. We're going to select that and we're going to blank our turnout up to this timber here, just to the left of the sort of suggested tie bar that Templot gives us. Going to click stop. Now using the length button on the top of the screen, I'm going to shorten the turnout down to just one timber and click stop. Now we can ignore this one over here. This is a leftover from something I was doing previously, so I'll just delete that one. Okay, so let's have a look. We've got a single timber with slide chairs. So we do exactly the same thing as we did before. We hit store and shift multi. Now it's saying my gauge change invalid. Let's just ignore that, click OK. And you can see what's happened. We've got all of a nice collection of slide chairs. But I'd obviously done something wrong. I can't think what I've done off the top of my head because it hasn't shrunk the gauge down. So not to worry, what I'm going to do is just quickly I'm going to delete all of these. Probably quicker if I grouped them and then just deleted them as a group, but not to worry. Let's get back to where we were. So me doing this wrong is actually going to teach you something else. So if we come up to gauge, we could modify the track gauge We'll just do that manually. Let's make it say 9mm. So that's reduced our gauge down manually, and now we can store and shift multi, and there we go, we've got all of our chairs. Now we've got all our timbers on there as well, so we could hide those, but it's not necessary to do so. So I can, with my group tool, which is just up here on the top left of the screen, I can group all of those, and we can export those as a group. Now, I won't go through all of this now. What I will do is hit the preview button. So we're just going to preview this 3D export, and often it will preview with the meshes aren't properly fixed or whatever, but it gives us a good idea of what we're looking at. So there we go, that will be our collection of slide chairs, but we've got this default option selected whereby it's a loose outer jaw. Now for slide chairs which only have one jaw, that's a bit silly. We might as well print those with that jaw on. So coming back to here, if we go to show settings, chairs, plugs and sockets, control template, chair settings, export all chairs with solid outer jaws and keys, so that's the one we want. Modify group to match, apply the changes. Now let's export those again, and let's call these slide chairs, and this time we're going to take them through into 3D Builder just as we did before. And there we go, we've got our selection of slide chairs, and you can see all of the outer jaws. Now then, can anybody spot what I've done wrong? Well, not really done wrong, but what I haven't done here. So I'm just going to let you look at those for a moment, see if you can see what I've done wrong. That's right, I didn't include a raft. So I'm going to close that down. Let's come back into, let's close these down, back into Templot, drag that across, and we can, with our shapes tool, we can create a rectangle which will be our raft, and we're going to do that at the click locations. We're going to click a couple of locations. Let's click here and again here, and you should be able to see the little crosses indicating where I've clicked, and add shape. Simple as that. So that's now our raft. So if we hit this button here, DXF/STL file export, if we come under layers, supports, it's going to gives us that option of 3D rectangle shapes as chair rafts. That's switched on by default. We don't need to come into here, just showing you where that was. Let's export that. Slide chairs, same name as we had before. Let's open that up, and there we go, that's created our raft. That's ready to print now. And so just as before, we click the tick in the top left hand corner and the spanner, and that will process that, mesh fix it. We can save it as an STL file just as before, and that's a file ready to 3D print. Okay, so I'm going to come back into Templot now. Let me go, I'm going to delete everything that we've done here. So we'll go group, delete group templates. That's the quick and easy way of doing it. So we're back to where we were. We've got our chair raft. We'll just leave that for a minute. And we can sort of undo the work we did with that turnout template. So if we click length, oh, hang on a second, let me just zoom out a bit. There we go. Oh, that's no good. We've got the gauge, the narrow gauge on again, so that's not going to be any good. So let's go gauge, modify current settings. We'll go back to where we were. I changed it to 9mm. Let's put it back to 18.83. In fact, it doesn't really matter for what we're going to do next. So I'm going to zoom out. Let's restore this turnout back to all its glory. And I'm going to hit that blanking button, and I'm just going to blank, or unblank, I suppose I should say, those couple of timbers at the end there. So we're back to where we started from. Now I've shown you how we can extract the chairs relating to the common crossing in a previous video. Martin's added this really useful little box here, isolate V crossing, and if I click that, that will reduce us just down to the common crossing chairs there. So we could, for example, with our shift and join tool, excuse me, let's make that the control. So with our shift and join tool, we could drop that onto our chair raft that we'd previously made. We could get our group tool, select that as a group, so with that other template removed, we're down to just this little common crossing here. If I go DXF, File, Export, and I won't export the whole thing, I'll just preview it just to show you what's what. And that will use the 3D tool program to just give us a little preview, and you can see we've got just our common crossing chairs on a raft. Dead easy. Now I'm not going to export that through 3D Builder, I think we've all got the hang of that by now. Okay, so there's something else that we can do here that's quite clever. I'd shown you previously in another video how to get the common crossing and the check rail chairs relating to the common crossing. But let's imagine we wanted a whole load of check rail chairs. Perhaps we're laying a bit of track with a particularly tight radius and we want to have a continuous check rail, and therefore we want lots and lots of check rail chairs. Well, we can do that very easily with what we've got here. So just as before, I'm going to hit the blanking tool, and I'm just going to blank that up, leaving one timber to the left of that suggested tie bar location, and click stop. Now before I do anything else, I'm going to adjust the check rails, and we do that by reel menu, adjust check rails. Now if we look at this one here, MS1, if I left click to select it, the adjust check rail dialog here shows us that we've got MS1 selected, and we can adjust the rail length with this button here using the mouse. So I'm going to adjust the rail length, and using the mouse I'm going to drag that along, let's say to there, click stop. And I'm going to do the same with TS1. So we're going to again adjust the rail length. So these two chairs here, in fact all of these chairs along here, are now check rail chairs. So I'm going to hit stop, and what I'm going to do is bring this down so it's just one timber. So we don't need this anymore, so we can close that. And using the length tool, I'm just going to drag the length of my turnout down. So what we're left with is one timber with two check rail chairs on, which is pretty good. So I'm just going to store that, and let's bring this over here. So we've got a kind of a second control template, and I've just put that by our little chair raft we've got here. Oh, let's just undo that. There we go. So we've got our template with the two check chairs. Let's store and shift multi. There we go. We've got a whole set of check rail chairs. So if I get my group tool from the top left, let's group those, And now under the group menu, we're going to shift, mouse action, shift group. Do we want the shapes to move in sync? Well, no, thank you. Let's leave the shape where it is. And now with the mouse, we can drag that down onto our raft that we had previously drawn. So if I go DXF file export, chairs only, let's call them Check Rail chairs, and those will open in 3D Builder for mesh fixing. Let's have a look, see what we got. Now we've got this one over here. Let's ignore that. I should have deleted that, but bring these into the page. There we go. And you can see we've got a whole set of useful check rail chairs there. Okay, that's how we do check rail chairs. Of course we can import those and mesh fix as before, but I'm not going to do it on this occasion because I need to delete these two over here. So with our chair rafts produced, the next thing is to prepare those for 3D printing. So I've opened up the Jitterbox Slicer app on my computer screen, and you can see that I've already placed the loose outer jaws for the S1 chairs. And we can fill this blue rectangle, which represents the build plate of our 3D printer, we can fill that with our chair rafts. So to do which, we go File, Open File, and if we, let's come back to basics, so come into the Windows C drive, open that up, you'll find there's a folder, Templot _dev, and in there will be a folder for STL files fixed. Now that's where mine are saved, that's probably where yours will be saved, but exactly where they are is up to where you've saved them. And you can see that within this folder here's all sorts of different chair rafts and chair combinations that I've produced in the past. So let's find, we did the S1 loose outer jaws for video. Let's get the, oh sorry, that's the S1J, so let's S1 I can't remember which is which. I think this is the one. No, that's the one I excuse me, that's the one I'd previously loaded. Let's, of course we could have loads of those. We could fill this build plate just with loose outer jaws. Let's find some S1 clip fit. There we go. So there's our chairs that match our loose outer jaws. Now we can duplicate these on our build plate, so we can click copy and we can produce as many copies of those as we want, and we can mix and match what we put on here. Now what I tend to do is get all the chairs for a particular turnout, let's say a B8, and I would put all of those, the slide chairs, the check rail chairs, the S1s, the S1Js, the L1s, whatever, the common crossing chairs. So I put those all onto one build plate, save that as a B8 right hand, whatever it is, specification turnout, and I have that ready to go. So if I want to make one of those, I just print that file. But anyway, let's imagine we filled this plate with everything that we want. Very simple job to click slice. That's going to process it. Now I'm using the Alcade printer here. I use the default settings. We can see it's well, if we drag this little thing down here, it will show us our sort of different layers of our print that we're going to do. It tells us how long it's going to take to go and so forth. So at this point we click save, and we would save those files. We give it a name, whatever we want, so S1 video chairs or whatever. Save that onto a USB data stick. Once that's saved, we can pop that into the side of our printer, select the file from the printer menu and click print. Now I'll emphasize here, I use the default settings. They could probably be improved upon by tweaking them, but the default settings have worked for me. And I think that's pretty much all there is to be said about this just for the moment. So I think we've now covered all the chairs that you're going to need to get going with this system. It's worth mentioning that there are all sorts of controls in Templot that will allow you to adjust the fit of the jaw onto the rail. We've not looked at any of those yet, and that will be in a future video. But for now, we've covered all the basics. Now it's worth me mentioning that all of the printing I've done has been with the default settings. I've not made any adjustments with some of the more complex settings that we've not yet looked at, and it's all been working out just fine for me. Now I've had lots of emails from people basically asking the same question, saying, well, this is all well and good, but have you actually built any of this track for real? And the answer to that is yes. Now I'm going to put some pictures on the screen in just a minute of a slightly more complex and elaborate setup that I have been working on. Now this is for a upcoming a special project. It will be part of a video series as well. In fact, I've been saving it, not wanting to sort of spoil it, but I'll put some pictures up for you to have a quick look at. They're not the best pictures, they were pictures I took not intending for them to go into a video, but they do at least confirm that I have done some of this for real. So we'll take a quick look at some of those now. Now I mentioned that was for part of a special project, and that's part of the something I'm producing for the Scaleforce Society's Jubilee Challenge project, which as I say will be part of a future video. And I've got some other things here that I've been preparing to go with that. This is still a work in progress, but some of you might recognise this. This is based on Evesham Station, and clearly it's still a work in progress, but it's coming along quite nicely. This is going to be in a video in a few weeks' time. So there's a nice little project that I have been working on. Oh, whilst I'm here, I might as well mention there's an updated version of these coming as well very soon. So lots of stuff forthcoming on the channel. If you've got any questions, do please feel free to leave them in the comments, and I'll do my best to answer them. Thanks for watching. Cheerio. Just before you go, and as a reminder, there are more plug track tutorials, tips and techniques at 85a.uk/BexhillWest/WordPress. Also, check out the Templot Club for lots of helpful advice.